hearing on the sale of 35 Railroad Street.
Hold up, all.
Yeah. The first thing is we were going to have an appointment of a moderator. We decided not to do that because there's no action being taken tonight. This is just a public information hearing pursuant to the Connecticut general statutes that we have to have before we sell a piece of property. The planned sale of Railroad Street, of which, what?
Before Henry continues, excuse me, I just want everybody to know this meeting is being recorded. There's some people that wanted to attend that couldn't. So we're not Zoom, we're not live, we're just recording it for the benefit of those that wanted to but couldn't attend. So just needed you to be aware that we are being recorded.
So if you have any comments to make that require, that necessitate swearing, I'd hope that you will, take away those comments. We have planned the sale and have an agreement for the sale of Railroad Street for $300,000. There will be some closing cost expenses taken from that. We don't estimate. They should be quite minor since we're selling directly from the town to a public entity. There are no taxes or anything else necessitated on the sale. But I did want to kind of go through a little bit about what we propose happening in the next 30 days going forward with the sale of the property.
But before we start that, we probably should read the charge as we call a meeting to order.
All right, it's the charge is.
I have the charge here.
Okay.
Warning, town of Canaan public hearing Thursday, September 28, 2023 at 7 p.m. Senior Center at 107 Main Street, Falls Village. Electors and other qualified to vote at town meeting are hereby warned of a public hearing for the town of Canaan Falls Village, Connecticut, to be held at the Senior Center at 107 Main Street on Thursday, September 28, 2023. To hear the town's intent to sell the town-owned building at 35 Railroad Street, formerly known as the Firehouse. Robert Rules of Order will prevail as parliamentary law in accordance with the principles of a deliberative meeting under Robert's rules. Participation will be reserved to those present. Respectively submitted by the Board of Selectmen, Henry W. Todd, Selectman, Greg Marlowe, Selectman, David Barger, Selectman, September 14, 2023. Sorry, Henry.
Good. So I think it's important to kind of outline the steps that are going to be necessary. The public hearing is the last step. This will end up probably going to a public vote. We hope at the same day that we vote on the new officers and for the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, etc. So we will probably take, or not probably, we will open a town meeting at the same time and do it by referendum, so that giving everybody in the town that votes in the election an opportunity to vote on this proposal. Also connected to that will be, if it is completed on time, a plan for changing easements on the property to allow the Falls Village Inn to have be able to transgress the property to get to their kitchen, and also give us the right to have a legal lot so that it is a legal lot as far as the town goes. And that will solve all the things. That may not happen before we have the sale of the building, because there are a lot of just little tiny I's to dot and T's to cross on doing any sort of an easement agreement. And that's between the lawyers, but we have an agreement in principle as it stands right now. The building will be sold as is. And I don't know, are there anything that either of you would like to add to that?
Just a few items, Henry, thank you. So there will be another public hearing that we have like tonight for the easement and, potential land swap, as Henry had just described with 33 Rail Street, the inn. And that's just by state statute, so we'll be back here to do this again. It'll be warned properly in the papers, and there's a very specific protocol, and we'll follow that. But there will be one more, and the two do not necessarily have to run together, okay? We can, the sale of the building is not dependent on the easement land swap, the land swap easement is not dependent on the sale of the property. So they are, even though we're talking about one property, one project perhaps, it's not necessarily, they're not codependent. And just to clear up, that is, the vote that we are anticipating having will be on November 7th, municipal elections. And you do not need to just be you can be on the grand list, you can be a grand list voter. You do not need to be, just a election voter on the voting registration. So if you own property and you meet town grand list, you can vote. There's gonna be two separate votes that happen that day. They're just gonna run concurrently. That's our plan.
The only other thing I would like to add to that, Greg, is that, again, this will give everyone a chance when they go to vote for the municipal elections to vote on these questions.
I did research town meeting minutes, when that property was bought by the town in 1972, I believe it was. And, I know there was discussion in the paper about it. I know that it's been brought up, but I could not find any minutes of the meeting that gave it a purpose. It doesn't mean that there wasn't one discussed. It means that it wasn't in the minutes that I found from 1972. So I just wanted to let everybody know that that due diligence was performed. It just, we have to go by what was written in town minutes, and there was nothing. So we would call it a negative declaration. Doesn't mean that it didn't have a purpose. It just means it wasn't in the minutes. And lastly, as part of this process, our town planning and zoning commission voted in favor of the sale of this property as proposed. And those are all that I have.
I have nothing else to add. We're complete.
So we're at the point, there's gonna be no vote taken tonight because there's no vote to be taken. But we would like to hear if there are any comments from the public. Now is your time to comment.
We would just ask no crosstalk, just please present it this way, and if we can't answer it, we do have the proposed purchaser, James Gillespie, in attendance tonight. Hopefully he can answer if needed, and we'll do our best.
And we'll, in respect to everyone who's here this evening, we'll limit it to 2 minutes. If you run a little bit over, that's fine also. But we will try to limit your comments to 2 minutes.
All right, are there any comments from the public? Anybody that wants to voice concerns? Pat?
I'm not gonna voice concern, I just have a question or clarification. Actually. The building will be sold as is, which means that we have no obligation to do anything else to that building except sell it to the person who brought forward the $300,000 bid.
That is correct.
So, go then, Vincent?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea that everybody, when they have a comment to make, speak up so that we can hear you on this and also identify who you are. The first comment or question was from Pat, our former first selectman. Go ahead, Vincent.
Vincent in communities. I just wanted the respective owners to re-verify that they're not going to use those doors in the front and they will be sealed. So this overlaps to our plan for parking and sidewalks. I'd just like them to reconfirm that.
Great.
That was never in the proposal for, the doors not open, so that's new information.
Can you speak up, please? We didn't hear you.
Yeah, so that, the doors opening, that wasn't ever in the proposal, so whether it opens or doesn't open, it wasn't really clarified, so we're gonna determine that, I think, in the building phase.
So because this is coming from planning and zoning, I'm gonna clarify what I think the question is.
Yeah.
So we have been working concurrently on a Railroad Street parking plan. Part of that plan is to go right in front of those doors.
Mhm.
So I think the question that is being asked is that gonna, be allowable per your use? It's gonna be all on town property. But, you know, fire trucks used to come in and out of there, they
Yeah.
no longer would be able to, or any vehicles.
Oh, you mean like, yeah, I mean, I think they will open in theory, but, they won't be used as for any. There won't be a curb for like vehicles to enter and stuff like that. So. yeah.
Is that satisfactory answer for you, Vincent?
I think it's a clear answer that will enable us to build a sidewalk in front and so
Right. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Pat?
Has the planning and zoning, commission, already changed the zone to make that an appropriate zone to do what, is proposed to be done there?
Not yet, Pat, that wouldn't happen until the transfer is sale, and then they would, but, let me clarify that, I'm sorry, I misspoke a little bit. Once we get to the point of the town, voting affirmatively that we can do the sale, at that point, the applicant would go to the planning and zoning for approval at that. Prior to the sale, he doesn't own it, so he can't go for a change of use.
In the town, can you go to the planning and zoning and ask for a change of use so that it's a done deal? Only because, I'm just thinking, only because, I'm assuming that they will be okay with this, with the plan that the gentleman gave us, which was a very nice, plan. But it protects, doesn't doing it beforehand, protect the town, protect the potential buyer.
Well, the potential buyers is protected already, by contract of if he doesn't get change of use, then he's not obligated to purchase the property. As far as the town going in front, I guess that exercise could be taken under, or undertaken, but, the planning and zoning is well aware of it, and obviously it has to be a vote, no vote has taken place yet. But I think that it maybe would have come back as a negative declaration to the Board of Selectmen on the proposal, because they have the full proposal that the public has. So if, to answer your question, it could happen, I don't know that it's necessary.
The reason I'm asking is because I'm thinking that no matter what goes there, in that type of venue, that you're gonna have to change anyway.
Absolutely.
And that it seems to me better to get it done so that it's done in case something happens.
I think that,
I don't think we can
we can't legally change the use until there's a different owner that wants to do it. But the overwhelming sentiment of the Board of Planning and Zoning is that they approve of this, otherwise we would have already had a negative declaration. So that they will probably, I can't.
This is state statute, you're telling me, state statute, you have to do it that way?
As I understand it, Janelle can probably answer that.
So just, hi, I'm Janelle Mullen, just to speak as the town's planning and zoning consultant. The town would not want to represent the applicant's interest. Flush out architectural drawings, get that involved with the site plan, being that they wouldn't later own the property. So the steps that are happening consequentially would be conceptually, the P&Z has taken the 824 referral from the Board of Selectmen and conceptually agreed to it and said this looks good from a P&Z perspective. The sale has yet to happen. In the event of the sale, the P&Z would then look at the site plan much more detailed, ask all questions around compliance with zoning regulations, which would be the applicant's responsibility to produce for the P&Z. So it wouldn't quite make sense for the town to represent the applicant and hire architects and get all these renderings in the event that they're not going to be owners of the property anymore. At that point, the P&Z will be in the position to analyze the application, look at it through the guise of the regulations, and make their determinations that are much more specific to the proposal. At this point, it's very much conceptual.
Well, I must disagree with you because that,
Not cross talk.
Yeah, Pat, I understand exactly where you're coming from, but I just understand that state law is convoluted. It is difficult to wander through. We want to do everything perfectly according to the law. And this is what our lawyers in P and Z have told us. And so that's just the way it has to, conceptually, everything has been agreed. But we can't officially do a change of use as the town because we're not going to own the property. It's just the way it is, and there's not a darn thing that we can do about it.
okay, so let's just say we didn't have somebody who's interested in the building. Are you telling me that in advance of the sale, that you couldn't change that zone so that would be done before the sale went through?
Correct.
Well, no, technically maybe you could, but what are you changing it to? Right, we wouldn't know what the potential purchaser was gonna use, so we have to know the end use, so I think we've got a cart and a horse back. I know, I can see you don't agree, but I think,
Well, it's just baffling, it's just baffling to me, because what we were told in the first meeting, initially, that particular piece of land was for the firehouse owner. That's, so you would have to change,
change of
you would
use
have to
is
change
absolutely
use.
necessary,
In the middle of town, I mean, there's only certain things that can be put there, correct?
yes.
Correct.
And that was all, you know, that was kind of, I think, kind of like, sussed out through the, lengthy request for proposal documentation. And it was very clear that it would need a change of use. There was a whole long section on planning and zoning requirements, and we're following that. So,
Are there any other comments from the public? Sure, Steve, go ahead.
Steve, is that existing parking lot, the entire thing going with the firehouse?
Yes.
Why did you hire?
that's not exactly right, Steve. Some of the existing parking lot now is actually town property, and that'll be part of our proposed, new, updated parking spots along Railroad Street.
Lot is actually gonna be going with the.
From the property line, which is almost in essence from the concrete apron. If you stood on one end and looked across it, that's pretty close approximation of the property line. So it could be upwards of, I'm just guessing this, 10 to 12 feet of what's currently parking lot is actually town owned, and that'll be future parking spots. So some of the parking spots that are currently there, the parking lot is actually town owned property into the road that will not go with the sale.
Okay, well, how many, if we don't know what business is going in there, how do we know what the apartment?
It's a square footage calculation. So for X number of square feet, you need so many parking spots. I believe with the square footage of that building, it needs 15 or 17 or 18 parking spots. And per the engineered plan that we have, they can fit within the boundary of the parcel. No, it's all square footage driven for planning and zoning regulations.
Yes, I think there was a question over here. Yes.
And what is that, oh, right, Dana, the property owners vote, or renters, on the top?
Absolutely. Oh, I take that back.
$1,000 in tax
As long as the renter pays $1,000 of like vehicle tax or something, otherwise they would not be able to vote. You could vote in the municipal election for candidates, but you can't vote at a town meeting.
Right.
So you have to qualify for the grand list voting.
Okay, the requirement is in part.
Car tax, so
No, the
in,
asset is valued at $1,000.
oh, the asset is valued?
Asset is valued.
I misspoke. So as long as you have a car that you pay taxes on within the village, within the town, you would be able to, you would be a grand list voter,
Okay.
so you could vote. My apologies, I thought it was $1,000 of taxes.
Yeah.
Just if you were on the grand list. Pat,
The town owns, the road, and 10 feet in from the middle of the road into the firehouse property, correct, where the parking lot is.
Approximately,
Yeah, and then the town also owns the rest of that parking lot, is that correct?
correct.
well, maybe I don't.
Yeah, the town owns.
No, what they're asking is the current parking lot that is shown on the map part of their property? Is that what
Well,
you're
right now
asking?
it's part of the town property, correct?
It's part of the Railroad Street property.
Yes, it's 35 Railroad Street property.
Right, and we, a number of years ago, we fixed the line as you're looking at the firehouse on the far right. That's how his mom used to live,
Yes,
they made an
yes.
agreement with her to make that
Yes.
clear.
There's,
And I understand that behind the building is really not parking, but that's.
Correct.
The town owns behind that somewhat, but not a lot, because the inn owns a little bit on, the end of the building and behind it. That's all taken care of. through an
Yes.
agreement between the inn and the town.
Yes.
in principle,
In principle, but we will have to vote on that separately if we don't have all the i's dotted and t's crossed before the November 7th election, which we think is entirely possible to get done.
Will that be a question on the ballot?
Yes, yes, we will.
if all goes to plan, there'll be two questions.
Well,
One being the sale of the building, 35 Railroad Street building as is. And the other one would be, transfer of property or, attainment of property, transfer of easement in exchange for that piece of property. And they are definitely two separate items that do not need each other they do not need to coexist for this to move forward.
The real issue is behind the building. I mean, it's the.
correct. So what he was talking about was the part
I
that's,
was talking about where the parking lot is right now.
yeah, you're correct. That's
From 10 feet in the whole thing.
correct.
And that is what was figured, going back to Steve's question, as far as, the parking spaces needed legally for that building. So it didn't take into consideration anything behind the building because the
Right,
town,
obviously.
that's not part of the property as it sits.
Any other, okay.
Would
Terry?
that parking lot be open to the public or just for that specific, business?
It's going to be, owned by the specific business that goes in there. When that business is not operating, I don't think that we're not gonna be the ones that are regulating whether somebody parks there or not. But we are also going to add several parking spots in front of the building and in front of what is now currently the parking lot.
Do you want me to add on that?
If you want to.
So there's, on a separate item, planning and zoning has had a working committee working on parking. And what we're gonna propose tomorrow, it's just a proposal phase to, surrounding property owners and businesses and anybody else, it's a public meeting. Is this plan, and currently it's shown 28 additional parking spots than what there is today. So that will, in essence, Terry, take the place and then some of what that parking lot held in its current state.
Time of that meeting.
4:15 tomorrow at Town Hall.
In our other informational meeting, didn't the owner, or the person who proposed to buy the building, I think he offered that, when his business wasn't busy, that could be public parking. Is that still hold true, or is that just?
That's up to the purchaser of the property, and I don't want to put them in the position.
Well, that was mentioned last time.
Yeah. I think he did mention that if he wasn't, no one was there. But James, that's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have an answer for that currently. I don't remember that question from last meeting, so, But, yeah, I don't really have a clear answer for that right now, but let's,
We'll see how it goes.
yeah.
Probably the best way. You're gonna own the property, so it's gonna be your determination whether to do it or not.
It's a municipality, Pat, I don't think it'd be proper for us to put that onus on a private property owner. And I think that by doing our parking, proposed parking project, it could take the place of that. I understand your question was, it was said, does it still continue? I understand. I just want to say it to counter that, so that, you know, the planning and zoning did take that into consideration. But we decided that, we had enough property available to offset it. If we get that in addition, it's a bonus. If we don't, we'll be okay.
I think it's wonderful to be having a discussion in a group in this town of whether or not we have sufficient parking downtown. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful discussion to be having, and it shows we've made a great deal of progress. Anyway, I'm sorry.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Are there any other comments from the public?
I just have one more, is the end gonna be if we're getting behind to get the deliveries?
I didn't-
Yeah.
I didn't hear you, Pat.
Yes, Pat, that's part of the,
That's part of the agreement,
part of the agreement.
okay.
Anything else? Okay, Chris?
Yeah, Chris, hello. There are two parts of the, I guess there's two questions to be asked in the referendum, right?
Yes.
And, the one must predicate the success of the other, isn't it?
No, they're independent of each other, actually, as far as timing goes. They're,
Can you expand a little bit on the one where the, I guess it's a land spot?
Yes.
sure, Dave, Greg, either one of you.
So in essence, there's a proposal for, I think, and don't 100% quote me, I don't have it in front of me, but like 31 feet of land behind the current building in exchange for a certain 28-foot or 24-foot wide easement that goes into the current parking lot around the back of the firehouse to the inn's property, which that's currently the inn's property. So we would, the property would gain that additional footage, and that additional footage is on purpose to make it it's now a non-conforming lot. That exact footage would make it a conforming lot. I don't know that the building is conforming, but the lot would be conforming size-wise, setbacks and whatnot. So that's why that size was negotiated out between the two parties. And the easement, you know, just for the inn's use and future use to get to the back of the building. Access, right, vehicular access. And
So the whole purpose of this is to protect the Falls Village Inn and protect the town of Canaan and the prospective buyer, so that all interests were properly balanced.
Okay, does that question have more I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed?
Well, let's just, it really doesn't. I think we're very close to agreement. Would you agree with that, Susan?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Our lawyer was away and then I was away, so it's almost done.
Right, but there's certain things that have to be done. We have to have a public hearing. You know, there'll probably be certain things that Susan has to do to protect her interests, to make sure that banks agree or anything, if there's any loans outstanding or something like that. And those things can take time, even if they're, according to you and me, we might say, God, this is just,
Well, then add a bank merger,
what?
then add a bank.
Yes.
Sorry, and then you add a bank merger to the whole thing, you know, and different people, and they're gonna have to get up to speed. You know, it's just, but those are routine matters. But you just can't guarantee that they're all gonna get done by a certain date.
My concern is proving the sale of the firehouse and having that go through, and then maybe this one isn't quite ready to vote on the same night, and what if that one doesn't pass?
So I can answer that. So I believe through our town attorney that we used for working on this property, that we don't have to have it legally finished in order to vote on it. We just need to have an agreement between the two parties of the exact specific, legal description of the property. This property can be sold as is, so if, for sake of discussion, to answer your question, the easement failed, the property can still be sold as is, and that's part of our contract with potential buyer. So they definitely, and if the building didn't pass, the town vote to sell, the easement and the land transfer could still take place. So that it just happened to be the same property, same time, and they couldn't happen together, they had to happen separately.
And we'd like them to happen together if possible. Any other questions? Hearing none, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
At 7:34 PM.
Mhm.
Thank you, everyone.
Wait, I second that.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you all for attending.